Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. The night stretched on, filled with easy conversation and laughter. David was charming and attentive, genuinely interested in getting to know Miriam. As they talked, she found herself opening up in a way she hadn't with anyone in a long time. She told him about her work as a graphic designer and her dreams of starting her own business. He listened with genuine interest, asking thoughtful questions and offering encouragement. "That's amazing," he said, his eyes lighting up. "It takes a lot of courage to chase your dreams like that. I admire that." Miriam felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. It was refreshing to be appreciated for her ambitions, for the person she was beyond her appearance. As the night wore on, their conversation deepened. They discussed their favorite books, their travel experiences, their hopes for the future. Miriam found herself drawn to David's kindness and intelligence, the way he listened attentively and spoke thoughtfully. When the bar announced last call, they both realized with surprise how much time had passed. Neither wanted the evening to end. "Would you like to take a walk?" David asked, a hint of hopefulness in his voice. "It's a beautiful night." Miriam nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. As they stepped out into the cool night air, David offered her his jacket. The gesture was simple but sweet, and Miriam felt a flutter in her stomach as she slipped it on. They walked along the city streets, their conversation flowing easily. Miriam felt comfortable with David in a way she hadn't with anyone in a long time. There was no need to pretend or hide parts of herself. She could just be. As they reached a small park, David turned to her, his expression serious. "Miriam, I hope this isn't too forward, but I've really enjoyed tonight. I'd love to see you again, if you're interested." Miriam felt her heart skip a beat. This was it, a moment of possibility, of potential. She thought about how far she'd come, about the woman she'd become. She thought about the future she was building for herself, and how wonderful it might be to share that with someone. "I'd like that very much," she said, her voice soft but sure. David's face broke into a wide smile, and Miriam felt an answering smile spread across her own face. As they continued their walk, making plans for a proper date, Miriam felt a sense of joy and possibility wash over her. This was what she'd been working towards all along. Not just the ability to live as her true self, but the freedom to pursue happiness in all its forms. To connect with others authentically, to chase her dreams without fear. As she bid David goodnight and made her way home, Miriam felt a profound sense of gratitude. For her journey, for the strength she'd found within herself, for the possibilities that lay ahead. She thought about the scared teenager she'd once been, and wished she could reach back through time to offer comfort and hope. To say, "It gets better, more than better. It gets wonderful." As she drifted off to sleep that night, Miriam's heart was full. The high school reunion had been a catalyst, a reminder of how far she'd come. But this was the real reunion, the coming together of all the parts of herself, the alignment of her outer reality with her inner truth. And as she closed her eyes, Miriam knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, whatever joys and sorrows the future might hold, she was ready. She was Miriam, strong, beautiful, authentic. And her story was just beginning. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of activity and emotion for Miriam. Her date with David turned into a second, then a third, each one leaving her more excited about the possibilities of their budding relationship. He was kind, attentive, and genuinely interested in her as a person, not just as an attractive woman. On their fourth date, as they walked hand in hand through a local art gallery, Miriam decided it was time to share her full story with David. She'd hinted at parts of it before, but she wanted him to know everything. It was a test, in a way, of his character, of their potential together. "David," she said, her voice soft but steady as they paused in front of a vibrant abstract painting. "There's something I need to tell you about my past." He turned to her, his eyes warm and encouraging. "You can tell me anything, Miriam." Taking a deep breath, Miriam began to share her journey. She told him about growing up feeling out of place in her own body, about the years of struggle and self-discovery. She explained what it meant to be transgender and how she'd transitioned to live as her true self. As she spoke, she watched David's face carefully, looking for any sign of disgust or rejection, but all she saw was compassion and a deepening understanding. When she finished, David was quiet for a moment. Then he squeezed her hand gently. "Thank you for trusting me with this, Miriam. It doesn't change how I feel about you. If anything, knowing what you've been through, how strong and brave you are, it makes me admire you even more." Miriam felt tears prick at her eyes, overwhelmed by his acceptance and support. In that moment, she knew that whatever happened between them, she'd found someone truly special. As their relationship deepened, Miriam found herself opening up in ways she never had before. She shared her dreams, her fears, her hopes for the future. And David was there, supportive and encouraging every step of the way. When she confided her ambition to start her own design firm, he didn't just offer empty encouragement. He helped her research, connected her with friends who had experience in starting businesses, even offered to look over her business plan. "You're amazing, Miriam," he told her one night as they pored over financial projections. "You have such a clear vision, such passion. Your business is going to be incredible." His belief in her, coupled with her own determination, gave Miriam the final push she needed. She gave notice at her current job and threw herself into launching her own firm. The process was challenging, filled with long nights and moments of self-doubt. But every time Miriam felt overwhelmed, she reminded herself of how far she'd come. If she could navigate the complexities of transitioning, of rebuilding her entire identity, she could certainly handle the challenges of entrepreneurship. 3 months after her high school reunion, Miriam stood in the empty office space that would soon become the headquarters of her new design firm. Sunlight streamed through the large windows, illuminating the potential of the blank space. David stood beside her, his arm around her waist. "How does it feel?" he asked, his voice filled with pride. Miriam took a deep breath, letting the reality of the moment wash over her. "It feels right," she said. "Like everything in my life has been leading to this moment." As she looked around the space, Miriam thought about the journey that had brought her here. She thought about the scared, confused teenager she'd once been, trying so hard to fit into a life that never quite fit. She thought about the years of struggle, of self-discovery, of becoming. And she thought about the woman she was now, strong, confident, living authentically. A woman who had faced her past at the reunion and emerged stronger. A woman who had found love with someone who saw and appreciated her true self. A woman who was now poised to make her mark on the world through her creativity and vision. "You know," she said, turning to David with a smile, "I used to think that transitioning was the hardest thing I'd ever do. And in many ways it was. But I'm realizing now that it was just the beginning. It gave me the strength and the courage to chase all my dreams." David pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "And you're just getting started," he said. "I can't wait to see what you do next." As they stood there, surrounded by the promise of new beginnings, Miriam felt a profound sense of peace and excitement. Her journey had been long and often difficult, but it had led her here, to this moment, this life, this version of herself. She was Miriam, designer, entrepreneur, woman, and her story, her real story, was just beginning. The grand opening of Miriam's design firm, Chrysalis Creative, was a resounding success. The office space had been transformed into a vibrant, inspiring environment that reflected Miriam's unique vision and aesthetic. Large canvases showcasing her best work adorned the walls, and the open floor plan buzzed with the energy of creativity and possibility. As Miriam stood at the center of it all, greeting clients and potential partners, she felt a sense of accomplishment that went beyond professional pride. This wasn't just about starting a business. It was about claiming her place in the world, about creating a space where she could fully express herself and inspire others to do the same. David was by her side throughout the evening, his quiet support a constant source of strength. As the last of the guests filtered out and they were left alone in the quiet office, he turned to her with a smile. "You did it, Miriam," he said, his voice filled with admiration. "You should be so proud of yourself." Miriam looked around the space, taking in every detail. The sleek desks, the state-of-the-art equipment, the wall of inspiration covered in sketches and color swatches. It was all hers, a physical manifestation of her dreams and hard work. "I am proud," she said softly. "Not just of this, but of everything, of who I've become." As they locked up and headed home, hand in hand, Miriam felt a sense of contentment she'd never experienced before. She had faced her past, embraced her present, and was now stepping confidently into her future. Over the next few months, Chrysalis Creative began to make a name for itself in the design world. Miriam's unique perspective and innovative approach attracted a diverse range of clients, from tech startups to nonprofit organizations. She found herself thriving in her new role as a business owner, relishing the challenges and opportunities each day brought. One afternoon, as Miriam was putting the finishing touches on a particularly challenging project, her phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from Chloe, her former high school bully turned apologetic acquaintance. "Hey, Miriam, I hope this isn't weird, but I saw an article about your new design firm in the local business journal. I just wanted to say congratulations. What you're doing is really inspiring." Miriam stared at the message for a long moment, a complex mix of emotions washing over her. There was a time when a message from Chloe would have sent her into a tailspin of anxiety and painful memories. But now she felt only a calm acceptance. She typed out a reply. "Thank you, Chloe. That means a lot. I hope you're doing well." As she set her phone down, Miriam realized how much had changed. The pain of her past no longer held power over her. She had transformed that pain into strength, into motivation to create the life she'd always dreamed of. That evening, as she and David enjoyed a quiet dinner at home, Miriam found herself reflecting on her journey once again. "You know," she said, twirling pasta around her fork, "I used to think that transitioning was the end goal, that once I could live as myself, everything would magically fall into place." David listened attentively, his eyes warm with understanding. "But I'm realizing now that it was just the beginning," Miriam continued. "It gave me the courage to pursue all my dreams, starting my own business, being in a healthy relationship, living authentically in every aspect of my life." David reached across the table, taking her hand in his. "You're extraordinary, Miriam. The way you've faced every challenge, the way you've created this beautiful life for yourself. It's truly inspiring." Miriam felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. This was what she'd always wanted, to be seen and appreciated for who she truly was, to be loved not in spite of her journey, but because of it. As they finished their meal and settled onto the couch, Miriam nestled into David's embrace. She thought about the scared teenager she'd once been, about the woman at the high school reunion who'd faced her past with courage, about the entrepreneur who was now making her mark on the world. Each version of herself had brought her to this moment, safe, loved, successful, and most importantly, true to herself. "You know," she said softly, looking up at David, "I think I'm finally ready to write my story. Not just live it, but share it. Maybe it could help other people who are struggling to find themselves." David's face lit up with enthusiasm. "That's a wonderful idea, Miriam. Your story is powerful. It could make a real difference." As they discussed the possibility, Miriam felt a new sense of purpose blooming within her. She had spent so long focusing on her own journey, on becoming herself. Now, perhaps it was time to use her experiences to help others, to shine a light for those still finding their way. That night, as she drifted off to sleep in David's arms, Miriam felt a profound sense of peace. Her life had taken her on an incredible journey, full of challenges and triumphs. And now, as she stood at the threshold of this new chapter, she knew that the best was yet to come. She was Miriam, woman, entrepreneur, partner, and soon-to-be author. And her story, in all its complexity and beauty, was one she was finally ready to share with the world. The process of writing her memoir proved to be both challenging and cathartic for Miriam. Each evening, after the workday at Chrysalis Creative had ended, she would settle into her home office and pour her heart onto the pages. David, ever supportive, would bring her cups of tea and offer encouragement when the words didn't come easily. As Miriam delved into her past, she found herself revisiting moments she had long buried. The confusion and pain of her childhood, the struggle to understand her identity, the fear of rejection. It all came flooding back. But this time she approached these memories with compassion and understanding, seeing them as steps on the journey that had led her to where she was now. She wrote about the pivotal moment when she first admitted to herself that she was transgender. The mix of terror and relief that had washed over her, the sense that she was finally seeing herself clearly for the first time. She described the long, often difficult process of transitioning. The medical procedures, the legal hurdles, the painful conversations with friends and family. But she also wrote about the joy. The first time she looked in the mirror and truly recognized herself. The day she legally changed her name to Miriam. The moment she stepped out into the world, fully herself, and felt the sun on her face as if for the first time. She wanted to be honest about the pain and isolation she had experienced, but she also didn't want to dwell on the negative. After much contemplation, she decided to focus on the moments of resilience and self-discovery that had occurred even in the midst of her struggles. One evening, as she was writing about her senior year, Miriam's fingers hesitated over the keyboard. She had reached the chapter about prom night, a pivotal moment in her journey. She closed her eyes, letting the memories wash over her. The rustling of taffeta filled her ears as she remembered standing in front of her bedroom mirror, tugging uncomfortably at the ill-fitting tuxedo her mother had insisted she wear. The fabric felt rough against her skin, a constant reminder of the disconnect between her outward appearance and inner self. "You look so handsome," her mother had gushed, oblivious to the pain in her child's eyes. Miriam, then still known as Michael, had forced a smile, choking back tears. As she began to type, Miriam found herself delving deeper into that moment than she ever had before. She described the conflicting emotions that had raged within her, the desire to please her parents, the longing to be true to herself, the fear of what that truth might mean. She wrote about slipping away from the dance early, unable to bear the weight of pretending any longer, how she had walked for hours through the quiet streets of their small town, the moonlight casting long shadows as she grappled with questions of identity and belonging. It was on that walk, Miriam realized as she wrote, that the first seeds of her true self had begun to take root. In the solitude of that night, away from the expectations of others, she had allowed herself to imagine a different future, one where she could live authentically. As she finished the chapter, Miriam felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She had faced one of the most painful memories of her past and transformed it into a story of resilience and self-discovery. The next day, as Miriam was reviewing some designs at Chrysalis Creative, her phone buzzed with a message from David. "Hey, beautiful. How's the writing going? I was thinking we could celebrate your progress with dinner at that new Italian place tonight. What do you say?" Miriam smiled, warmth spreading through her chest. She typed out a quick reply. "That sounds perfect. I just finished a tough chapter and could use some carbs and good company." As she set her phone down, Miriam caught sight of her reflection in the office window. She took in the soft curves of her face, the long hair that framed her features, the confidence in her posture. The contrast between this image and the memory of that prom night was stark. For a moment, Miriam allowed herself to feel the full weight of her journey, the pain, the struggle, but also the triumph and joy. She had come so far from that confused, unhappy teenager. And now, not only was she living as her true self, but she was sharing her story in hopes of helping others. The rest of the workday passed in a blur of client meetings and design revisions. As evening approached, Miriam tidied up her desk and grabbed her purse, excitement building at the thought of dinner with David. The restaurant was cozy and intimate, with soft lighting and the aroma of garlic and herbs filling the air. As they settled into their seats, David reached across the table to take Miriam's hand. "You look beautiful tonight," he said, his eyes warm with affection. "How are you feeling after writing that chapter?" Miriam squeezed his hand, grateful for his constant support. "It was tough," she admitted. "Revisiting those memories isn't easy. But it also felt liberating, in a way. Like I'm finally able to look at that part of my life with compassion instead of pain." David nodded, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her palm. "You're incredibly brave, Miriam, not just for living your truth, but for being willing to share your story with others." As they enjoyed their meal, conversation flowed easily between them. They discussed Miriam's progress on the book, upcoming projects at Chrysalis Creative, and their plans for the future. Miriam found herself marveling at how natural it all felt, this life she had built for herself, this relationship based on mutual respect and understanding. As they were finishing their dessert, a decadent tiramisu they decided to split, David's expression grew serious. "Miriam," he said, his voice soft but steady, "there's something I've been wanting to ask you." Miriam felt her heart skip a beat, a mix of excitement and nervousness swirling in her stomach. "What is it?" David took a deep breath, then reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Miriam's breath caught in her throat as he opened it, revealing a delicate diamond ring. "Miriam," he said, his eyes shining with emotion, "you are the most incredible person I've ever known. Your strength, your kindness, your authenticity, you inspire me every day. I love you, all of you, exactly as you are. Will you marry me?" Tears welled up in Miriam's eyes as she looked at the ring, then back at David's hopeful face. In that moment, all the struggles of her past, all the fears and doubts she had overcome, seemed to fade away. Here was a man who saw her, truly saw her, and loved her completely. "Yes," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, I'll marry you." As David slipped the ring onto her finger, Miriam felt a sense of joy and belonging she had never experienced before. This was more than just a proposal. It was an affirmation of her journey, a promise of a future filled with love and acceptance. Later that night, as they lay tangled together in bed, Miriam gazed at the ring sparkling on her finger. She thought about the chapter she had written earlier that day, about the scared and confused teenager she had once been. If only she could reach back through time and tell that young person that everything would be okay, better than okay. "What are you thinking about?" David murmured, pressing her shoulder. Miriam turned to face him, her heart full of love and gratitude. "I'm thinking about how far I've come," she said, "and how excited I am for where we're going." As she drifted off to sleep in the arms of her fiancé, Miriam felt peace. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more wonderful content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.